Welcome back to Homestead Healing. My name is Jenny, and I'm a Christian wife and mom of 3. Today, I am restocking our pantry from scratch. I do this multiple times a week because of the high cost of food and our desire to eat more wholesome homemade meals. I always make sure to buy the best ingredients we can afford and use them to create delicious homemade dishes. Not only does this save my family a lot of money, but it also helps improve our health. The first thing that I will be restocking are sourdough croutons. We had a salad for dinner tonight, and I wanted to include some homemade sourdough croutons. So I had some extra bread that we were not going to be using, and I just cut this all up and added some olive oil and seasonings, some garlic, onions, parsley, salt, and just mixed that all up really well. And I toasted the breadcrumbs in the oven at about 425 degrees for about 15-20 minutes until they were nice and toasted. I stored them in a mason jar this time, thinking that it would just keep them nice and fresh, but actually they ended up getting kind of soft over the next couple days, so I'm probably just going to use a paper bag next time. The next thing I'm making here is sourdough English muffins. So I am starting these the night before. It's flour, sourdough starter, milk, honey, salt, and then I will just mix them up and leave them overnight. And in the morning, I will cut them and cook them. I make these English muffins regularly because they are so easy. They are so quick to mix the night before. I do mix them just a little bit. They do need to be kneaded for about 5 minutes, but they are just so quick and easy and require just a few minimal steps the night before and then just cutting them and cooking them in the morning. So it's really simple and my family loves them. It is now the next morning and the English muffins are ready to cut and cook. It is Saturday morning and my family is all still asleep right now, so I'm hoping to have these all cooked and ready for them when they wake up for breakfast. I am preparing a cookie sheet with parchment paper and sprinkling some cornmeal on top to prevent the English muffins from sticking. I press the dough out to 1-inch thickness and use a 3-inch round biscuit cutter to cut out the English muffins. And just put them on the parchment paper lined with cornmeal, and then I will sprinkle the tops with some more cornmeal and leave them to rise for 30 to 60 minutes. While the English muffins are rising, I'm going to make some granola. My family loves this granola just to snack on or on top of yogurt with some honey or with some milk. It's just really delicious any time of the day. I also don't really buy very many snacks anymore, so it's also a very convenient snack to grab and take to go. I'll leave the full recipe in the description, but it's basically just oats, and a sweetener of your choice. Honey or maple syrup work really well. Avocado oil or coconut oil, some salt. I like to add a little cinnamon. I usually add pumpkin seeds or pecans. You could also add chia seeds or flax seeds. Dried fruit is really good in granola. There are so many different variations and options when it comes to making homemade granola. Once you have all the ingredients mixed together, just spread it out on a pan or a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper and bake at 300 degrees for about 20 minutes. Next, I'm going to use up some of my sourdough discard and make some sourdough flour tortillas. This is a Little Spoon Farm recipe, and I will link them all in the description. This is so simple. I never would have thought. Tortillas are so easy, and they are just so much better than the store-bought tortillas. They store really well in the fridge, but they are just amazing when they're fresh too. So we're going to have burritos for dinner tonight, and I'm going to be using some of the fresh sourdough tortillas with that. The granola is now ready. It smells amazing. So I'm going to pull it out of the oven and press it all down. That is what will give it the big clumps of granola that are just so delicious. And we'll let that cool and then just break it up into chunks and store it. Now the English muffins have puffed up nicely and they're ready to cook as well. So I will preheat a pan to a medium-low heat, usually like a number 4 on my oven, kind of a low, medium-low. And I will add as many as I can fit without overcrowding to my pan. It's usually about 4 English muffins. And you'll want to cover them with a lid and allow them to kind of cook with the steam. So I cook each side for about 4 minutes and flip them over and cook the other side for another 4 minutes with the lid on as well. And then I will remove them to a cooling rack once they are nicely browned and fully cooked, and cook the rest of the English muffins the same way. Once the granola has fully cooled, I will start breaking it up into kind of big chunks and store it in a glass jar with a lid. And that'll stay fresh in the cupboards for quite a while. It usually doesn't last us more than a week, but it stays fresh for at least a week or 2. The English muffins have now also fully cooled, so I'm going to store them in these little bags that I have with some little twist ties, and they will stay in the pantry for about a week as well. It is now after breakfast, and the kids are smelling the fresh English muffins, and they smell amazing. So everyone is asking for an English muffin their special way. So we are all just having a snack of an English muffin before lunch. Next, I'm going to be making some sourdough crackers. This is actually the first time that I've made this sourdough cracker recipe. I usually just take my sourdough discard and spread it on a parchment lined cookie sheet, very thin, and add some salt and seasoning. But I was all out of sourdough discard with all the recipes I had made earlier and muffins I made yesterday. So I decided to try a different recipe. It was a little bit trickier, just having to blend up the ingredients and cut up the butter. Just took a little bit more time, but I wanted to see how it came out. So I mixed all the ingredients in the blender, and then you just turn it into a dough that needs to be rolled out. Usually the crackers just end up much crispier the thinner you can make them. So I did find them to be a little bit softer than the regular discard crackers that I usually make, which were also a lot easier. So I will probably just link the other discard recipe. I will link this one too if you'd like to try it. I just didn't quite roll these out thin enough probably. They were still delicious, they just ended up a little bit softer and a lot more steps to make as well. Once they were fully baked and nice and golden brown, I stored them in a mason jar, as I usually do with my sourdough crackers. However, this time they actually got even softer from storing these in the jar. So don't recommend storing these crackers in the jar unless you get them a lot thinner than I did. I am now ready to cut and cook my sourdough tortillas. So I pulled the dough out of the refrigerator because I wasn't quite ready to make them this morning when I made the dough. So I just fermented it in the fridge for the day. This sourdough tortilla recipe actually says to cut them into 16 pieces, but I decided since I want to have burrito tortillas, I'm going to cut them into 8 pieces so I can make much larger burrito size tortillas for dinner tonight. And the last thing that I'm going to be making today is some oatmeal cookies. I never buy cookies anymore, and I rarely buy any treats because they are just so much easier to make, so much healthier to make from scratch, and really pretty easy and fun too. I really love baking, obviously, so for me, it is not a chore to bake cookies for my family, and I wanted them to have a treat after dinner tonight and something to snack on throughout the week as well. It is now getting close to dinner time, so I'm going to go ahead and roll out these tortillas. I like to roll them as thin as possible. The thinner they are, just the better they end up cooking and tasting. So once you get them nice and thin, I cook them on a preheated cast iron skillet for just a couple minutes on each side till they get nice and golden and fully cooked. And now I'm going to bake up all of this cookie dough. A lot of times when I make cookie dough, I like to freeze the cookie dough balls and store them in a freezer bag in the freezer so I can cook them nice and fresh when we want them. But since it's going to be a really hot week, I'm just going to get all of the baking out of the way today, and we will have them throughout the week as well. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey to a healthier and more budget-friendly lifestyle. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.